My intention for this video is to shift your entire perspective when it comes to loneliness. To move you out of the state of despair, of feeling sad and depressed, and into a state where you can view your loneliness as the catalyst for your transformation. That when you look back, once you've emerged from the state and you've found your meaningful connections, and you look back at these moments of loneliness, you're gonna recognize it as a period that accelerated your growth. That yes, it felt miserable and it took you to the depths of despair, but at the same time, it's gonna be these moments that will help you find that light within. It's these moments that will accelerate your path into a totally new identity, an identity that resonates with your authentic self. No longer needing to have to peel through layers to identify yourself. No longer having to put on false personas when you expose yourself to the outside world. Because you won't be fearing loneliness anymore. And you shouldn't be fearing loneliness, because you would be so comfortable being yourself that even if you were to be left in loneliness again, you just wouldn't care. Because you know that it's another opportunity to accelerate your growth. It's another opportunity to delve within the unconscious and bring it into the conscious, to bring more and more awareness to it, rather than just sabotaging your growth with things that tend to distract you from the work that you need to be doing. And as always, nothing on my channel is those instant quick fixes. It's all about doing the work. As Arnold Schwarzenegger always says, do the work. Because it's through doing the work that you will be able to unfold yourself. It's through doing the work that you will find that you're able to shift your reality with something more permanent, rather than something that is a fleeting sense of reality shift that will only plunge you down into the state of despair at a later stage. So with that, let's get right into it. So maybe you had those moments in your life when you had some connection and you had some deep, meaningful relationships in your life. And you long for those moments because they left you with that feeling of having filled that void that you now currently feel, because you find yourself in the state of loneliness. But I want you to take a step back, take an objective mind and reflect back on those moments and really truthfully ask yourself, are those the moments that truly transformed your life? That when you look back at it and you really apply critical thinking to it, and you be honest with yourself, were those moments in your life when you transformed as a person, you emerged as a better person? Most likely your answer to that question is going to be hell no. It just allowed for the continuation of your unconscious behaviors. And even if I reflect on parts of my life that were in those phases, it's the part of my life where I felt like I was living so unconscious. I was being totally driven by the ego, not even being aware of aspects of my behaviors that were not conducive to my inner growth or even in alignment with my authentic self. So when I reflect on that, on those times in my life when I was deeply caught up in the unconscious, never really delving and doing the work, it's those moments of my life that I know were not conducive to my growth. They only perpetuated those negative behaviors to continue. Now, I'm not saying loneliness is the be all and end all. You have to be lonely, you have to be miserable. You can be miserable, but if you don't do the work, you're going to end up more and more depressed. And that's why I always emphasize the need to do the work, because doing the work, meaning doing the self-work, looking within, objectively looking at your characteristics and bringing in more of awareness and the presence of God within your life. That is going to be what ultimately allows you to become productive in that work and to really identify what behaviors, traits, personality aspects that you need to work on. And sometimes it can feel hard because it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. Everyone has different facets of personas that are shaped by their unique characteristics and circumstances that gave rise to who you are as a person. And those layers of personas that you've layered upon your authentic self that is now stifling who you inherently are. So a lot of this exercise is to recognize that when you really reflect on it and you think about those moments when you were connected, those were not the moments that transformed your life. That these are the moments that when you look back, you know it's going to be these moments that put you into beast mode. It puts you into beast mode in terms of doing the work. Because when you're going to reflect back on this, you're going to know that these feelings are what pushed you into doing the work. It's these feelings, the harder and harder it gets, and the more you start to delve within, it's going to push you to doing the work. It's going to push you into those moments in your life when you really find that need to shift your identity, to identify who you really are, and to do the healing work that you need to do to be able to resolve the inner child hurts and lack of self-compassion that you never had for yourself in the past. So that when you now look at life and you reflect upon it, that you can say, I now feel more integrated. I now feel like a better version of myself. And I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not even saying that I'm there. I'm sure there's a lot more work that I still need to do, because I still find myself within this predicament of loneliness. Yeah, it might not be as bad as some of what I faced in the past, but I recognize now that if I shift my perspective to loneliness, I can transform my life. And it's about bringing the awareness, because you need to start looking at those moments in your life. Yes, the feeling was there, but the identity shift did not take place in those moments when you were happy and joyful, when your ego was driving the car and you were totally unconscious, sleeping at the side, watching your ego drive into no man's land. And now you all of a sudden find yourself lost in the situation, having to navigate yourself back to your original life path, your original purpose, your original goals in your life, and your original authentic identity. So welcome to the journey. So a lot of what we deal with when we're doing the work is trying to bring up all these unconscious beliefs and unconscious actions to the surface. And we bring it to the surface so that we can observe it. And we call for the presence of God to be with us as we observe this, so that we can be more aware of these things and we can analyze it in a way that would be conducive to our growth, to shift our beliefs. Because once we bring all these beliefs and patterns and actions to the surface, we can start realizing how some of these things that were taking place in our unconsciously, because of the programming that had been embedded within our subconscious mind, the way in which we perceive reality, and the belief systems that we've created based on the circumstances that we faced in life. When we can take that step back and start looking at it objectively, it becomes the very catalyst for transformation. And it's not something that's easy, because a lot of this is in your subconscious mind. So the first step is always bringing the awareness. The second step is always then trying to shift these beliefs, to start programming new beliefs. And that's a lengthy exercise, and I'll get more into that maybe in a future video. But I'd like to give you an example. Something that I think is so common in not just my household, it's probably common in a lot of households, and it's something that is so admired in society. It's something that I admire my parents for, because it's really a good quality that they instilled within me and they demonstrated. But it has a profound negative effect if it's not being done in the right way. Sometimes in society, we often have this belief that when we are very philanthropic and we tend to do a lot of good for others, it's very much admired and respected in society. And for good reasons, it should be, because it's what creates a better society. Oftentimes, it's a lot of these beliefs are saturated in karma. If I do good, then when I die or my next life or later in my life, somebody will return the favor, or even if they don't return the favor, that at least I've built up some positive karma in life. But where it goes wrong, and it's a belief that was installed within me, is when you do this from a position of self-sacrifice, we don't recognize the unconscious side that is actually taking place. There can be this notion that you're doing this, or you're acting philanthropically, or you're acting with a sense of kindness, of generosity, that you're doing it to prove your self-worth, to make yourself feel that I'm a good person because I do this. But the very fact that you need to do this to convince yourself should be telling you that you have some sort of void. Because if you're doing this from a sense of guilt, it's only going to make your situation worse, because guilt is a very low frequency and it's not going to have the same effect versus a person that is doing it without that sense of guilt. And a lot of times we tend to get caught up. We want to be good people, so we end up sacrificing for ourselves in order to do for others in the world. And when we do this, when we end up acting in a way where we sacrifice ourselves in order to deliver value to others, it only leaves you feeling worse off, because it's your way of seeking validation from the outside world. You're sacrificing from yourself because you don't see the God within you. And I don't mean from an ego standpoint that you should be thinking of yourself as God, but I'm saying is that when we reflect upon the statement in Bhagavad Gita and we think about this notion of you are part and parcel of God, meaning you are of that same God essence, and that same God essence exists in people outside. And yes, we should recognize that God essence outside, but you should first start with recognizing the God essence within yourself before you go out there and try and serve the God essence outside. Because if you serving the God essence outside, you are not recognizing the God self essence within you. You're only trying to seek validation from the outside world. You're trying to serve a God that is outside of you and not recognizing the divinity within you. And so I'm not approaching this from an ego standpoint, because I'm not in alignment with people who say that, oh, I'm God and every one of us is God. Yes, there is some truth to it, but as soon as you attach your ego to it, or your ego thinks it is the God essence, it is going to potentially sabotage your life. And that is not something that I'm trying to get at. Yes, there is a lot of truth to it, because we are part and parcel of God and we have a part of God essence. But it is not the ego that is the God essence. It is the part of higher self and the higher self to the ultimate totality of God. So this is something that I think is so fundamentally important when it comes to bringing some of these unconscious beliefs, because I never even had this perspective when I was going through a lot of my life, because I was living unconsciously and I was not bringing a lot of these aspects into my awareness. And it's when you really start to go deep within this, these sort of revelations come to the fore, and you can start to bring up these actions. And it's not to mean that the action is wrong. It's just that it was veiled within the situation where the underlying rationale or the belief that was underpinning a lot of these actions needs to shift. It needs to change, because it's lodged into the subconscious mind with a sense of lack of self-worth or any of the aspects that is not in alignment with true self. And that is what we need to start bringing into awareness. And it's these moments of loneliness that act as a catalyst for bringing a lot of this up. Today you get a lot of these big words being thrown out, like manifest your reality, big shift in your reality, instant shift, permanently shift your reality. But all this starts with the small steps. It's those small steps that are going to get you up the mountain. Not going to get you there instantly, but one step at a time. And sometimes your path may not be that straight path. You may need to go under twists and turns along the way. But recognize that as long as you stick on that path and you continue putting one foot in front of the other, you're eventually going to reach that summit. And hopefully this video helped to inspire you to shift your perspective on loneliness, that you no longer look at it as this feeling of being in the depths of despair, that you now have that courage to call in that presence of God within your life, to observe those nasty moments with you, and to bring to the surface those unconscious behaviors, traits, actions, so that you may do the inner work and overcome it and shift to a totally different reality in time, that when you look back at it, you're going to recognize and see those moments as those moments of transformation. If any of this content resonates with you, please do subscribe, please do like, share, and leave your comments in the comment section below, because I love to read your comments and you inspire me at the same time. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.